Well, with all the gauntlets being thrown, I decided I better get a move on. I was finishing up the crossing this afternoon, and there's me dremeling, not my fingers this time, got the pliers so I don't burn or cut anything. This is cutting the guardrails in. You don't want to cut that too wide, so I'm working it very easily. But this thing took me a long time to fit the guardrails and get everything engaged. For some reason, I probably didn't trim enough out of the crossing route, the first route that I laid, and the guardrails were, flangeways were a little, the back-to-back distance was too tight. So it took me a long time to fiddle around, removing material, putting the guardrails in, moving stuff to get it to run smooth through here. I start cutting the crossways and then realize I didn't solder all these frogs solid, so there I am adding some solder. Now we're going to cut the cross rails, and there's a stoning off the extra solder, get the solder blobs out of the insides. So then we'll clean it out, and like I said, it took a while fiddling around to get this thing to run really good. And the way I do this, I have a Microtrains truck and another truck that has Fox Valley models, metal wheel sets, and I use those two alternately on both routes to double check to make sure everything that I have is going to fit through there. When I'm testing the track with the truck, I use a file to hold it down, push it back and forth. That way my big fat fingers aren't causing it problems. And it works pretty well. And you can see the truck bounce up and down or rise up on one side or whatever it is, and kind of get an idea of where to correct the problem. We're out in the garage with my bare shelf, and one of the things I've been thinking about was a way to dampen sounds, because I know when I run my little Unitrack Inglenook in my train room that you can hear a lot of sound from the little Bachmans. So I have some of this little, it's like a 16th inch foam. And I was thinking of laminating that onto there to help isolate the track and the scenery from the box. It sure help dampen it down a lot. So I think I'm going to do that today. And then for my road bed, the Woodland Scenics track bed. And it's a foam product. And this will just help me get a little bit of height for what we consider this mainline track, coming to the 3. This is some white of this foam that I had left over from my wife doing a little project. Shows up better on film, but I'm going to use this roll of black. I got this at the craft warehouse, and it was probably about $5. And this is Creatology, 3 foot wide by 60 inches long. Flip it around and put a couple clothespins or something on here to lay it out. Now we've got our foam cut, fit our shelf. I left a little bit long so I can trim it. And we're going to give this a light sanding just to make sure. And you can tell this is made to be a shelf. It's not quite as sturdy as Peter's construction, although I could add a brace. I left this pretty much open because I wasn't sure where, if you decided to mount it with shelf bracket, if you decided to use the regular Rubbermaid shelf brackets, that's what this board and this board are for, is because you want a little bit of a gap so your wiring and stuff can run in here, and then you can cut. I'll make a bunch of these. Cut these down, cut my little leftover pieces into like say 2x2 squares or 1x1 squares that can be glued on wherever your shelf bracket, you know, they have the screw holes to mount it. Then you can glue them on and secure your shelf or to the shelf bracket that way. We're going to spread some caulk. I've got all my glue on there. Kind of forgot to start the camera before I pop this on here. Sorry, I'm going to put weight on it. We need some reinforcement. Oh, got my track plan. Too deep. As of course, you know, nothing weights down a railroad better than a little light reading. Large hunk of aluminum. Another very large plate piece of aluminum. I'll let that cure. I'm going to go finish the turnout. So after having so much trouble with the diamond, getting back to making switches was a piece of cake. Didn't take me long at all, other than I figured out that I cut that straight stock rail too short, so I had to make a new one of those. And get it all soldered in place. Get the curved point rails. Now I didn't hinge these, even though that's a number 5 and the other one's a number 4.5. But I've been reading, it's mixed results. Some people have problems with them breaking loose from the throw bars and other people don't. So we'll see what happens. Then I decided I needed a tie to hold these two pieces together where the two turnouts join right there. So we built one, stuck it in, and then I posted the finished product because my camera ran out of batteries. I had to take a couple still pictures. So here's looking from the west end east, and then here's looking from the east end back to the west. And all I have left to do is cut electrical gaps, test the whole thing, make sure that the ties are all isolated, and there's an overview, and then we can plop it on the layout. See you next time.